Thank you for being with us today on this exciting and intriguing panel with my fellow guests. I'd like to start off by saying when we talk about global economic competitiveness, it's like a high-stakes game. Some nations are sprinting ahead while others are struggling to keep the pace. In 2024, Singapore led the list. Other countries like Germany, once industrial giants, are falling behind, feeling the heat from rising energy costs and shifting trade dynamics. And just when we thought the world had enough, we saw Donald Trump saying he wants to impose tariffs on aluminium, steel. Also, we saw the tariffs with Canada that he later took back, Mexico, and China. So today, in this panel, we're going to be discussing how economic competitiveness looks like, and we're going to be delving into different countries. I actually want to start with you, Your Excellency, on the UAE. So the UAE ranked 7th in the global competitiveness score. 7th, it's a very high up number. The UAE, once reliant on energy and on oil, diversified its economy, became more competitive. We saw new industries rising. So I wanted to ask you, what were the key factors to having the UAE so high up on that list?
Thank you. Thank you, Paula, for the question. Awalan, salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to take this opportunity to first thank my fellow panelists for being here today with us to discuss this important topic. And I would like to also welcome all the audience to Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, to attend the World Government Summit, which connects our minds and shapes better future for all governments worldwide. The case of the UAE and the success factors. If I may summarize the success factor, I'll just say visionary leaders who have commitments to action at the heart. I would say speed, because the entire world is speeding up and is actually flying at a very high rhythm. And then I would say commitment to creating change. 7th globally is not the destination or it's not the target. What we need to understand collectively, I'll take a step backward. Why competitiveness, or at least reports, since we are mentioning rankings, matter? They just set for us the foundation, or they guide us through what governments needs to do. In summary, and if we put everything aside, governments needs to ensure that the best economic, social, environmental conditions are in place for extreme prosperity. For us to achieve that equation, a lot of stakeholders and a lot of partners are crucial to design or define the path forward. Among them are international rankings, which with the intellectual minds and researcher institutions, we have the framework that we are, as government, can monitor our progress towards our ambitious end goals. In terms of the UAE's diversification, the UAE has a very clear-cut, diversified economic vision. In our Vision 2031, we aspire to double the economy to reach 3 trillion dirhams, hopefully. And testimony is that our 2024 GDP has a 77% non-oil sectors contributing to it, up from only 55% a decade ago. All of these are evidence of the continuous efforts by the multi-stakeholders enabling our economy, including the industrial sectors in areas like AI, green economies, and other potential sectors to grow as well. Thank you.
Luis, I want to share also Costa Rica's story because it's somewhat similar to that of the UAE. So it started from purely agriculture, and we saw the movement towards high tech and sustainability. So you were once reliant on coffee and bananas, and then the country now thrives on medical device exports, strong service sector, renewable energy. So what do you attribute the success of Costa Rica's diversification of its economy and becoming a competitive economy as well?
And I'll add some other thing. We did that in 30 years. And actually, when I was born in 1992 is when started this change in Costa Rica. The vision of the leaders when the civil wars in Central America were ending at the end of the 80s gave us the perspective to see outside the region of Central America. That vision that started in the 90s, that was consolidated in the 2000s, gave us the opportunity to diversify. As you were saying, we passed from export mainly coffee and bananas to already exporting almost 2,000 goods and services. But the key matter in Costa Rica was the investment in education. Probably not a lot of you know that this from Costa Rica, but we abolished the army as a permanent institution in 1948. Just when the Cold War was beginning, Costa Rica deleted its army, and we allocate all those resources for 50 years in education. And that gave us a comparative advantage to the region and to forge the human capital to achieve this success story in competitiveness.
Also, I want to go to Your Excellency right now. So while Costa Rica and the UAE have diversified their economies over the last few years, Guinea remains heavily dependent on natural resources, particularly bauxite, the key raw material for aluminium. You're the second largest producer globally, and you play a crucial role in the global supply chain of aluminium. However, being too dependent on one type of resource or raw material perhaps hinders global competitiveness. So I want to ask, what policies or initiatives are in place to encourage economic activity and competitiveness in your country?
Thank you very much. Before start, let me thank the leadership of the UAE for the invitation, and please receive the greetings and the compliment of the people of Guinea to the people of the United Arab Emirates. You are rightly, when you talk about competitiveness, for us is no longer cost effectiveness, but is also what we call sustainable value creation. It's about resilience. It's about long-term economic development. When you come to Guinea, yes, it's been labeled as one of the world's largest bauxite producer, but also iron ore. And then the last 1 year or 2 years, what we've been talking in Africa in general is about industrialization. Our raw material, someone was talking right now, chocolates. I mean, cacao is coming from Africa. And yes, President Trump was adulating about the aluminum. Aluminum is getting from bauxite. So to give an example, if we don't transform those minerals in our country, there's no job creation, there's no value added. What the leadership of Guinea has been done the last 3 years to make sure all the bauxite mineral, they do the first transformation in the country. For example, from bauxite, they go to alumina. I'll just give you a figure. One bauxite ton maybe costs $100, but alumina costs $2,000. Aluminum will cost $5,000. You can see the maths. We've been taking resources from the country to send to elsewhere. But what we are doing right now to economic transformation, to what do you talk about, to transform all these resources from the raw material to the first transformations. But when you come to Guinea, as you rightly said, we don't want to be labored or only dependent on natural resources. Guinea, we have about 13 million hectares of arable land. We are not only mining, but also agri-country. Because if we can develop those agricultural land, that will create more value. What we've been doing is Vision 2040. The government, the president said, look, we want to make sure we use our natural resources to transform our country like the Gulf, especially UAE has done, to use oil to transform the country for other value added. So we set up a vision called 2040. This vision will be mostly on 5 clusters or 5 pillars. The first pillar of the program, 2040, is agro-industry commerce. We want to use to try to do more agriculture, more industry, transform the agro-industry. You have to take care first of the food. The second pillar of this vision is education and culture. You're going to make sure you talk about brain. You know, human capital is a key for any development. The third pillar on that vision is infrastructure, transportation, and technology. We need to make sure, I was speaking to my colleague ministers in the cabinet, so in the next 15 years, a minister of infrastructure needs to build about 10,000 kilometers of bitumen. So he has a target. The fourth is about economy, finance, and insurance. We as a Guinean, we have world number 1, value of bauxite and iron ore and gold. But the price is not determined in Guinea. It's sitting in London. So we need to make sure we create our stock market to make sure the price is being fixed in Guinea. The last one is healthcare and well-being. Because if you don't have healthcare, it becomes a problem. So this is the 5 pillars of our economic vision called Vision 2040. But you not only have a vision that can change a country, you need to have enablers. The first enabler of our vision is the project we call Simandu, about $20 billion project. This project is composed of a construction railway, 650-kilometer railway from the south to the port. And the port, deep port, has been developed, not only for the port for mine. We want to develop a port, multi-users port. We can use as an industrial park. The railway also can be used for the mining, but also for good and service. The second enabler is about creating a sovereign wealth fund. Because we don't just want to take all the resources today, consume. We can take the resources we are getting from the mine and distribute to all the Guinean. We have about 16 million Guinean. I think after 1 year, the money will go away. We need to make sure we create wealth, sovereign wealth fund. The money we are getting from that sovereign wealth will help us to fund the 5 pillars that I just mentioned earlier. The last one is about rating of our economy. So we need to make sure our economy is rated so that we can go to the international market to raise capital. These are the vision that we are taking forward. Someone was saying that if we look into the Middle East today, UAE, for example, and other countries, what changed, as Madame was rightly said, is about vision. It's about the willpower. In our part of the world today, we just want to use our mind to develop agriculture, to develop other services, tourism, ecosystem, blue technology. So it's not about partners, it's not about investors, it's about partners. Therefore, we want to make sure we have South-South cooperation, but we also have a circular cooperation. We can deal with Emirates, we can go to Costa Rica, we can talk to all these people to transform. The target, the message is clear. Africa want to move from resource, as I said, we have resources, but we need to transform our resources in our country. That will create jobs, will create wealth, will create prosperity.
Your Excellency, so your country has ambitions on moving higher up the value chain when it comes to bauxite and being producers of the material itself, which is aluminium?
Yes, this is the way forward. I just give you a figure. 3 years ago, we have about 12 companies that are doing bauxite. They are taken from the ship, from the high sea, they take the bauxite, put in the big ship, and they go somewhere else. So what we told them, look, it's good, we don't want to change any agreement we had, but let's try to renegotiate it. Because if we can put this transformation plant, they said there's no energy, but we can work on that. What we have done, the 12 companies, you can come together. So about 4 or 5 can come together to create one industry. Imagine, I just told you earlier that if we can transform the bauxite into alumina, from $100, you go to $2,000. You can see the value chain. By taking the bauxite to go to the truck, our people, only drivers, don't create any jobs. But if we have the industry, it will create jobs, it will create the value of the people, and at the same time, we are using this money to create agriculture. That's what we've been doing the last 3 years. The Simandu project, when you Google it, you can find it. I call it a project of United Nations, because everybody's in that project. We have Australian Rio Tinto, we have Bau still in China, we have Chalco, we have a Singaporean, we have an American. So we are putting everybody together to create an ecosystem that called the Project Simandu. It become a reality today, and then energy sector we are working on because we need to make sure that we take care about environment. That's why our program is called Simandu program, by the social, economic, sustainable program. We need to make sure we take care of the environment. It's extremely important for us from the mining sector and develop other sector, which is agriculture. We have about 300 kilometers of coastal line. That's how we can do blue economy. So therefore, we can do fishery, we can do tourism. We have all the best. And I don't like to talk about it because when you ask, why your country? I always said, why not my country? Some people ask you, why Guinea? My answer is simple. Why not Guinea? Our economic, right now, I'm sitting here with the ambassador and also my director of statistics. Guinea, we used to calculate our GDP only from the capital, Conakry. We are doing the rebasing now for our economy. My department do rebasing. Our GDP is gonna double to the current. So next month, we're gonna be announcing all these figures. Our debt to GDP is the lowest in the region, 30% to GDP. Our inflation is coming from 7.4% to 4.7%. So all these indicators, because we used to calculate in the capital city, there are a lot of economic growth, around the country. And beyond that, we are the country in West Africa where we are neighbored by 6 countries. And we have a port that gives our economic value. And with JLECAF, with the Free Trade Agreement for Africa, free trade areas, I've seen some of my brothers from Africa, if he can do goods in the Guinea, he can go and sell to Ethiopia, he can go to Cote d'Ivoire, he can go to many countries. Otherwise, they can do the same thing in their country and they can sell to Guinea. And beyond the African free trade area, we have ECOWAS. We are from the West African Economic Zone. We can do business in that area as well. So we are calling our people to come, not as an investor, but as a partner. Sharing prosperity. The wise man, one wise man like to say it, if we are working with your people, prosper your neighbor, not beggar your neighbor. So we want to make sure we share prosperity. We want to make sure when you come to Guinea, you have your fair share, but the key element is transformation. We want to transform our country into industrialized country. That's the only way forward. I talk Asia, Southeast Asia, you know, Japan, some area was having industrialization. But Japan, after some time, they went to Southeast Asia. You see Malaysia, Singapore, you know, Vietnam. They have doing more manufacturing. I'm wearing a shirt. When I see that one, maybe you can put made in Bangladesh. Bangladesh economy have changed today. So what Africa needs today to transform, to get more manufacturing, to change our raw material. Someone just gave me a chocolate just now. I was checking it. It's coming from Cote d'Ivoire. But it's not transformed in Cote d'Ivoire. It's transformed maybe in UAE or maybe somewhere in Europe. So the key factor is that we want to transform our raw material into industrialized and therefore create prosperity. We have a vision. In Africa today, as one of the enabler of our vision is youth. Our population is about more than 70% young people. So you have to create jobs for them. In order to create jobs, we don't want to take the raw material, put in the truck to the back seas and sell elsewhere. But we are telling to our friends, come to us, transfer technology, try to work together in order to transform our economy. We are very much adamant, we are clear on our vision, and we know that we can work with our friends in this panel, the people in this room, and people who come for this World Government Summit to come to Guinea, come to Africa, you get a partner so that we can transform our resources into valuable item and we can give job to our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Arturo, you have more of a helicopter view on all of this. So the core of your work is ranking global competitiveness when it comes to economies. So what key trends or policies have you seen when it comes to nations that are succeeding and nations that are, let's say, lagging behind or still on the bottom of the list?
Thank you for being part of this panel. I was afraid of not being able to say anything after the emotional speech by the minister, but it also sets the path very well because the journey that we started 30 plus years ago at the IMD World Competitiveness Center sees now its fruits because last year the Financial Times, for example, considered that competitiveness was the word of the year. But we have also seen amazing examples, and 3 of them are actually in this panel, of how to transform an economy to make it competitiveness, to make it competitive. Competitiveness is about prosperity. And if you ask me what are the key success factors, I think we see the examples here. One is having good institutions, and it comes from the 3 countries that have today. Second is, if possible, having natural resources and create value added out of these natural resources. But fundamentally, it's about investing in infrastructure, that we have heard, investing in education, and investing in healthcare, with the ultimate objective always of creating jobs. Because one of the keys to competitiveness is that competitiveness is not about competition. It's about prosperity. And the key to competitiveness is collaboration, is not competition. And all of the countries that we see being successful, small or large, they have succeeded by opening up themselves to foreign trade and fundamentally to focusing on creating jobs by adding value through their industries or, through their natural resources.
What about more on the fintech side of things, artificial intelligence? So it's a big thing here in the UAE, and other countries are now rising to that. So I wanted to ask, where does AI and fintech play into that competitiveness ranking role?
Well, certainly technology is today an imperative to generate productivity. And one thing in productivity is the anchor that links natural resources or industrial policy or institutions to prosperity. There is no doubt today that without technology, we cannot actually generate productive economic systems. And technology is a must, but it's not the only way to do it. I think what we see also in some countries, they focus too much on technology when, for example, they should rely first on developing the right infrastructure to, for example, improve the value of their natural resources. But ultimately, all countries need to implement better technology.
Thank you. Your Excellency Hanan, the UAE in 2024 reached a record of non-oil trade of 3 trillion dirhams, and we saw this through achieving many CEPA agreements, the comprehensive trade agreements. Saw a lot of partnerships when it comes to trade. How important are these agreements and trade when it comes to the UAE, especially given its geographical location, let's say bridge between the East and the West?
It's definitely very important for the UAE as it invested so much early in the establishment of this nation on building a world-class trade services as well as infrastructure. The CEPA, or the Comprehensive Economic Partnerships, are not only unlocking trade between countries, but they are also solutions to a lot of challenges that nations are facing. One of them is gender balance, for example. On the trade, we do acknowledge that both genders are extremely important contributors to our economies, and therefore, the UAE's trade agreements do include articles and provisions that enables female-led businesses export their product abroad. Apart from that, I would like to shed light on 3 important elements for any reform to take place, for any nation to have its competitiveness being at the top. Data, because what a trade and what doors could be open cross borders if policymakers at both ends are not guided by data. Talents, capacities are very much important. Human capital are instrumental because even as we witness and live the era of intelligence revolution rather than industrial revolution, without human talents unlocking the potential of the future, the intelligence by itself will not take place and will not be possible. Regulation has an instrumental role. The current way that policymakers and governments design regulations must be revisited because at the speed of the evolution of the intelligence era, regulation must be catching up. And we need to, like earlier this morning, Klaus Schwab was saying that systems needs to be redesigned or at least needs to adaptability. We are living in an open space where open AI is existing for people to come together and pull their research and unlock this potential for the universe. However, regulations are still hesitant or not taking a place to protect or to enable businesses to thrive through these new technologies. So these are also fundamental areas that any nation needs to keep an eye on if we want a future-proof competitiveness for our nation where nobody is left behind.
Thank you, Your Excellency Luis. So Costa Rica has benefited from great economic ties with the United States. You've benefited from free trade agreements, foreign investments, particularly in high-tech manufacturing. Now, with Trump imposing all these tariffs on different countries and different industries, will Costa Rica get affected? And if so, how and what will you do about it?
Let me think what I'm going to say, because, I mean, Marco Rubio's first mission abroad from the United States was to Latin America, which includes Costa Rica. We've been a key partner of the United States for the last 150 years. He's our main economic ally and one of the best investors in the country. But it's not the only one. We have also free trade with Europe. We have also free trade with China. We approved the CEPA with the UAE a couple of months ago, and hopefully it will start operating the 1st of April. And as I was saying before in my last intervention, we opened to the world since the 90s. And we are ready to keep doing that. But we know that we have to rely on our friends, in our historical friends, and our key partners. I mean, even Mexico and Canada, that are real close to the United States, are having their issues. but at least for us, we don't think that in the future that will be an issue, because the rhetoric that we're hearing now in the region could affect a lot of people, but at the end, we need to solve our own problems, and that's the main issue in Latin America. I just came from another panel before with a lot of countries from Latin America, and we just keep hearing the same stories from the 20th century. We always hear from Latin America trying to blame someone else for our problems. And I believe that has to end in Latin America. We have to acknowledge that we have our issues and that we need to solve them ourselves, but we need to keep relying on our historical allies.
So internally, what do you see is the best way to solve these issues?
And first, recognizing that our problems, that we need to resolve them, and then look to countries like the ones that are here and see what they did to solve their own issues. But because at the end, developing countries, we have the same problems. But the interesting thing of this kind of forums is that we have and we share the same problems, but we know that everybody has a different way to solve them, and we learn from everybody of us in this kind of forums. I didn't knew the story from Guinea, and it's just amazing how you're trying to change your economy and try to give that value to your people and not just give it away by sending the minerals. But at the end, I mean, that's the key issue. Acknowledge that we have our own problems, but that we have to resolve them by ourselves, but relying on our key allies and looking around who is doing the right things.
Thank you. Your Excellency, so 2040, you have a very prosperous vision on diversifying your economy, but let's speak on the shorter term of things. The 25% tariff, being a major exporter of bauxite, what will happen to your country, and what will you do about it?
My character, I don't want to comment on the internal politics or other countries. What is extremely important for us, I think, give an opportunity, because it's a challenge. If a 25 tariff has been put in, those are taking aluminum. I think God give us the reason that what the decision that President took was the right decision to transform in our country. Because we're just taking the bauxite out of our country, no transformation. It goes to those countries has been, the President Trump said 25%, because the raw material coming from Guinea, but Guinea is getting peanut out of it. So now give opportunity to do the first transformation of our country. That will give us energy, will give us manpower. But what is the three areas that is extremely important? The Vision 2040, all these minerals, but we need to take care of good governance, rule of law, fight against corruption. Those are the three areas that we need to be adamant to make sure when people see that we are doing it, they will take us seriously. And the last one is diaspora. We have a lot of Guineans all over the world. Diaspora is the key for our development. That's why it's a human capital is extremely important. You can have all these good plans. As I like to say to our partner that while we are drafting now this Vision 2040, 95% is the implementation. 5% is on the paper. We can have all the good plan. If we don't have right people to make sure it's done, it will be very difficult. So I'm very pleased to share the panel of all these eminent persons that give us good contact. You know, I want to know what Costa Rica is doing best. We can share what the Guinea can do, and then the same thing for UAE. That's what I said. Data is important. I was telling to my team who's coming with me, I said, we need to know how they have done their rebasing, how they do their sensing, what we can do much more faster in order to do all this development. So yes, the tariff is something that, as I said, I don't want to comment, but is every difficulty you have to take as an opportunity. And that opportunity for Guinea to make sure we accelerate the installation of the manufacturing plant can give us energy, but at the same time can help to transform. For us, is a key area to do transformation. I mean, I keep saying that if we don't have industry, our country will never go anywhere. Because if you have industry, you will double or even multiply by 10 your economy. Guess what? If we have automotive, industry in your country, the banking sector will grow. People who create for the workshop, and you have insurance will grow. That will multiply your economy. So for us, it's about transformation, industry transformation. I believe that we take that opportunity. Our friend, last week, we got a lot of calls that people now, they are rethinking to try to come back to do the manufacturing in Guinea. That's a good news. So basically, that we can add value to our economy. As a Minister of Planning, by the end of this year, we need to make sure the growth by the IMF was 7.1%. Our growth is a double digit. Make sure that this growth I'm giving to you is minus the minerals. People need to know that. When you look into the chart of the economic growth, it's not in the mining sector, it's the industry, it's agriculture, who's driving our economy. So when you look into our indicator, that something is not, is very surprising people, because the mining we are taking more than 200 million ton, but if we are getting peanut out of it, we not add value. But as I said, remember these friends, you know, bauxite can give 100, alumina will give you 2,000, aluminum will give you 4,000. So do the math. Come to Guinea, we do the manufacturing, and we have to do circular economy. I insist again, so that we can prosper our neighbor rather than to beg our neighbor. This is my message to the world, to the United Arab Emirates, to our friends around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Arturo, I want to wrap the session with you. So given all these different trade blocs that are emerging right now, these headlines about trade wars, the tariffs, how do you see the landscape of global competitiveness changing? How do you see it playing out in the next few years under Trump's administration?
Obviously, when one looks at the global competitiveness, there's going to be a decline overall. That is, if global trade stops, or at least is under difficulties, all countries are going to suffer. And I think that we need to realize that the countries that are going to be mostly affected are those who rely on foreign trade, be it exporters or importers, like the United States itself. I would like to just say one final thing. I think that His Excellency mentioned, looking at examples and best practices. And again, Costa Rica and Guinea and the UAE are amazing examples of competitiveness. But every country should go after its own way, because there's no single model. If you compare Saudi Arabia with the UAE, with Costa Rica, with Singapore, with Switzerland, the path to prosperity that they have followed is completely different. As we say at the center, there are many ways of cooking the salad. The ingredients are the same, but the Costa Rican salad is different, not better or worse than the UAE salad. And every country needs to learn how to cook that salad in a different way.
Very great example to finish off the session with. Thank you so much for my esteemed panelists and for the audience for listening in.